All right, back here, Pac-12 Football Media Day in Las Vegas, and the one and only John Wilner is coming in because this is how it works. John is working everything, and he just dives in after being around the conference this morning, the big press conference that we were all anticipating. How would you sum it up in a word, John?
Well, more than one word, but it could have gone worse for the Pac-12, I thought. I thought the commissioner did a pretty good job of answering questions with enough detail to kind of keep the wolves at bay in some regards, right?
Agree.
I don't think that, that's certainly the number one issue here, but I don't know that it's necessarily swallowing. I think he did enough to prevent it from swallowing everything else and keeping some of the focus on football.
Well, because there's so many quarterbacks, I think the league, behind the scenes, has said, we're going to make sure we emphasize quarterbacks. And the commissioner is saying, we want to talk about football. That wasn't happening early today with him.
No, it wasn't. And they've got that great quarterback lineage. You saw the opening video montage. I mean, they got Elway and they got Mariota and all those guys.
Carson Palmer.
And Herbert and Goff and Luck. And so the fact that they can kind of mesh the past with the present, I think gives them a pretty good talking point, pretty good narrative that's football-centric.
Okay, so for fans today that wanted conversation about conference realignment, expansion, detraction, contraction, and a media deal, they didn't get it today. The next question is, when? When?
Well, the commissioner said the quote-unquote near future. I'm taking that to mean before the season. I cannot imagine, and I've been wrong before, but I cannot imagine that they're going to let this thing drag into the football season that everybody is looking forward to. It would detract from the teams, the coaches, the players to such an incredible extent. I have to believe they're going to get this deal done in the next, what does that mean, 5 weeks? 5-6 weeks? Got it. I would bet heavily on that.
John Wilner Hotline. He is with us every week on sports360az.com. His content's already up. His reaction to the column here in Las Vegas today. We both sat in on George Klikoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12 conference. I think he had a point when he said, I'm paraphrasing, that we've waited and things have changed.
Yes.
And there's some opportunities now that weren't there, John. I think that they should be given a little bit of credit, or is it dumb luck?
Well, no, actually, I think that was part of his strategy. It was just a risky strategy, right? I mean, the economic downturn that caused all those layoffs and cost cuts at major media companies in the, late fall, winter, they're kind of pulling out of that, and I get the distinct sense that there's some companies that are now interested in the Pac-12 media deal that weren't interested 6 months ago. And I think that was part of his strategy all along, except it was risky because you could have schools just get frustrated and leave, right? So it was a big roll of the dice, and at this point, it seems like he's got a chance of winning his bet, because the prospects are improving for not only the dollars involved, but I think the networks involved, because exposure is a big part of this.
Where did he miss it today? Where were you sitting there saying, no, that's not right?
Well, certainly he kind of set it up like the plan all along was, we're going to, we don't want to talk about the media deal. We want to talk about football. And he kind of made it seem like they had done a media deal, like they could have gotten it completed by now if they had wanted, and they chose instead to focus on football. And I don't really think he meant that, and I don't think it's the case.
There were some questions about that.
Yeah.
So the people weren't you and I were both there. There were some people, one reporter in particular, it's like, you have a media deal done, it sounds like.
Right. It sounds like you got a media deal. And he goes, no, I wouldn't read too much into that. So he, that was one of those cases where he probably wasn't as precise with his language as he would have liked. And that kind of thing happens when you're up in front of media and doing a Q&A session. But otherwise, I think he did a pretty good job. And he got off the podium without getting feisty like he did last year with about the Big 12 stuff. And it was a very matter-of-fact approach, which is what they needed from him this year, given the circumstances.
You're going to talk to him later today. Can you give me an idea of what it is you want to hear from him, or what you're going to ask him? Can you give the fans that? Or is this is reporter 101, Brad? I'm not telling you what I'm going to ask him.
Some of it's Reporter 101. I'm going to talk to him about a series of topics that I hope to be able to report on over the next month or so.
Which will show up on the website.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I certainly want to ask, there's a puzzle out there for everybody right now. And it's how does the playoff impact the scheduling, and how does the scheduling philosophy impact whether the Pac-12 plays 8 conference games or 9 conference games, whether they play 10 conference games, whether the schools are going to still be able to schedule the LSUs and the Ohio States and the Michigans, right? We saw a couple months ago Ohio State backed out of their deal with Washington. Is that going to happen more frequently because of the playoff? I want to try to get a sense for the big picture because scheduling is such a huge deal for the schools and the campuses and the conference.
Yeah, we love Utah, Florida. I mean, we love looking
Utah,
ahead at
Florida.
that. Arizona State is going to play a game. It won't be a marquee game, but they're going to play Oklahoma State. We like seeing those games.
And ASU's got some marquee games with home and home series down the road in the second half of the decade. But are the Ohio State backed out of the Washington series because they didn't want to make multiple trips to the West Coast since they're going to have to play USC and UCLA in a conference game? Are we going to see other schools in the SEC and Big Ten start canceling games that they've got scheduled with the Pac-12 because they don't want multiple trips out west?
Before I get you out of here, one of my takeaways from today is USC, UCLA are leaving. There's no mention of it.
No mention.
There's no animosity. I'm expecting highlight videos with no USC and UCLA. They're spring. Everybody's playing nice in the sandbox on that one.
They are. We'll see what happens during the season, right?
Yeah.
But I think the conference's approach is, look, we got to treat the athletes right because it's not the athletes' fault that those schools are leaving. They had nothing to do with it. And the right thing to do for the kids is to promote those schools the way we would under other circumstances if they were staying in the league. Now, we'll see what happens with the fans, right? I mean, we already saw in the Big 12 last year, Texas and Oklahoma getting a lot of heat. We'll see what happens this last fall. But certainly the conference is kind of taking the high road, and I think that's the right road.
Okay, and then NIL was addressed today, and pretty dark comments, I thought, from the commissioner about the potential if some things don't go right on NIL. Did you read it the same way?
I did. I think that everybody in college athletics is hopeful that Congress will step in and create some kind of federal standard, because right now you got NIL, you got 50 different states and you got 50 different laws, and it's impossible for the NCAA to manage, and it has turned everything that happened under the table is happening over the table, but it's really kind of under the table stuff, you know? So the Pac-12 is in no different position in that regard than the SEC or the Big Ten. Everybody wants some kind of federal legislation. Specific schools in the Pac-12 are at a greater disadvantage than other schools because of, the wealth of your donor base and the passion of your donor base. That is dictating which schools have the most NIL money. Some schools in the Pac-12 better fit that than others.
Yep.
But if they can get Congress to step in here, then that'll solve a lot of problems.
Get out of here. Go do your thing. Appreciate you coming by.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
There's John Wilner. He's going to get out. That's the way it goes here at Media Day, and we're back with more in Las Vegas after this time out.